be taking a risk. Because someone in this room, I'm sure, will be calling my department, like, yo, Rosa talk. Right. You know why? Because my ancestors are not going to die in vain. Because I will not have my daughter at 8 years old, when she's 30, figuring out how she's going to eat every day. I'm not going to allow that to happen. I'm a movement person, and I'm about the people. The people in this room right now can affect some serious change. And that's why I ran with Cynthia. That's why in 2012, despite every effort to not let you hear Jill or Sherry speak, the Green Party is about to get 600,000 votes, if not more. That's not a lot in terms of numbers. But what it shows us is that no matter the forces at play, particularly the liberal elite class, which includes black and brown people now, we're not going to allow at least those 600,000 people. Now get this. Still half of the country that could have voted was so disaffected they chose not to vote. Those are the people we need in the party. Those are the people we need in the movement. The idea of trying to move people off Obama, it's a wrap. His presidency is over. We need to worry about the next 20 years of democratic, neoliberal, neocolonial politics that is going to fuck us up. We already know what the Republican and Tea Party are about. They haven't hid that. And as Latino people, there's not a lot of us right now, especially to the women of color in this room, we need to right now seize every leadership opportunity that is available, and if it's not, you run it and you make that leadership opportunity available, right? So I'm so happy Jill is here, because what they did for the Green Party was take us to that next level. But I'm sure Jill's about to tell you that even if we vote, the least important thing you can do, because of what my ancestors did in this country, because of what African descendants did, is vote. The most important thing you can ever do, as Kwame Ture said, is organize, organize, organize. I'm so happy to be able to say, right here at UMass, coming off this election run with Shakes Alive in 2012, that the presidential candidate I voted for, that my daughter voted for with me as well, and my husband is here. Everybody give it up for Jill Stein.
Well, I just have to say that's why I am so proud to be a Green, and I'm so proud to be following in the footsteps of Rosa Clemente and Cynthia McKinney, who were blazing the trail, I think, for all of us, for a politics that's of, by, and for people, peace, and the planet. And I want to give it up for Rosa Clemente. And we were able to do as well as we did. And we tripled the vote this time around. We quadrupled it over 2004. And our vote went up, whereas the Obama vote actually went down by the millions, by about 9 million, in fact. And the Republican vote went down. And more people are pulling out of this establishment politics, this politics of the 1%, and going home. And what we got to do is reach out to them and let them know that there is a politics that's of, by, and for the people, of young people, of Latinos, of people of color, of people who need health care, people who need jobs, and people who want a climate for the future. And for all those 36 million students who are indentured servants, who are facing 50% unemployment and underemployment. For those 36 million students who are in debt, carrying $1 trillion worth of debt. For those 36 million students who are carrying the climate crisis on your backs that our generation has created and refused to do anything about. The Economist magazine had a cover story right after Sandy, and it said something like, it's the climate, stupid. But what it really needed to say was, it's the fossil fuels, stupid. Because if we're going to do something about it, it's attacking that fossil fuel energy system, but it's especially attacking that fossil fuel politics, which is really what the driver of this climate storm is all about. And I think we have an incredible opportunity coming out of this election. An incredible opportunity building on the momentum that Rosa built in her campaign, that Cynthia built. We've been able to build on that, and they were doing the real hard work during the first Obama bubble, when it was absolute heresy. It was absolute, traitorism to be standing up for a different kind of politics, for a people-powered politics, not a money-powered politics. And they turned out to be right. They turned out to be exactly right. Because if you look at what happened, we've gotten to this place of crisis not just because of Republicans, but because of bipartisan collaboration. The massive Wall Street bailouts, $700 billion under George Bush, but $4.5 trillion under Barack Obama, and counting, $16 trillion more if you add the free giveaways, the free loans, the free trade agreements, so-called, which are free if you are a corporation. If you are a human being, they are anything but free. And there's the mother of all free trade agreements being cooked up right now in the back rooms, this Trans-Pacific Partnership, which will continue to offshore our jobs and undermine our wages. And in fact, this one even undermines American sovereignty by creating an international corporate board that can decide if we want to protect workers' rights in this country, if we want to protect our food supply or our air or our climate, they can overrule all those protections and say that they're not okay. This international board, corporate board that will come out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And that's being brought to us by Barack Obama, who in fact expanded on NAFTA, gave us 3 more free trade agreements that are offshoring our jobs and undermining our wages. And the Democrats are quick to criticize Bain Capital for their buy it, strip it, flip it mentality, for sending our jobs overseas. But it's these free trade agreements that enable the Bain Capitals of the world to send those jobs overseas. So there's bipartisan responsibility here all around. Or to look at the expanding war. As Rosa mentioned, within 24, 48 hours, you had 2 drone strikes. Well, it's like after the first Obama election, within 3 days, you had suddenly an intensification of the war, the drone strikes in Pakistan. And then you had, that was on day 3, and there were no Republicans in the room to blame that one on. And then that was expanded to Yemen and Somalia, and the troops were surged into Afghanistan. And why did we withdraw from Iraq anyhow?
Iraq asked us to.
Exactly. They refused. And in fact, we owe Bradley Manning a big round of thanks on this one. Because it was on account of WikiLeaks that the Iraqi government refused to extend immunity for U.S. soldiers. So it was the deadline that George Bush had arranged. It actually wasn't Barack Obama who got us out of Iraq. It was actually George Bush, if you can imagine that. And it took George Bush to get us out of Iraq under Barack Obama's administration. What does that say about Democratic and Republican collaboration? Or to look at the attack on immigrants, in fact. More families split, more children taken away from their homes, more undocumented Americans sent across the border, harassed, racially profiled, and deported under the Obama administration in the first 3 years, in fact, than under all 8 years of George Bush. And then to mention on climate, it wasn't, It wasn't just George Bush who gave us drill, baby, drill. In fact, all of the fossil fuels have greatly escalated under Barack Obama, and whole new universes of fossil fuels have been opened up with the fracking and with more offshore oil, more opening up of our state parks and national parks, and actually national, not state parks, but including the Arctic as well. So on all of these fronts, and then the Keystone Pipeline, the southern half of which has already been built, and you can bet your bottom dollar that we're going to hear within a couple of months that the northern half of the Keystone Pipeline is going to be permitted, unless we stand up and stop it, which is what we have to do. Not only stop the Keystone Pipeline, but also stop the free trade agreements from expanding, stop the Wall Street bailouts, because in fact, under Barack Obama, the Fed is now bailing out Wall Street to the tune of $40 billion a month. How about we bail out the students and stop bailing out the banks? We can do it. We've got the money. Just move it over. Instead of giving that $40 billion to the banks, which doesn't do us any good, because what's it buying? It's buying just these worthless, fraudulent mortgage securities. We already have plenty of them. We don't need more of them. They don't get us anything for their money. On the other hand, buying up student debt is huge. It actually accomplishes something productive. That is, it unleashes the economic power, the creativity, the imagination of an entire generation, which is what we must have if we are going to reboot the economy, as it must be rebooted every generation. So it's not just good for students, it's actually good for everyone to bail out students and break up the banks instead of the other way around. They're breaking up the students. And it's not only like the right thing to do, the economic thing to do, it also pays for itself. We know that from the GI Bill after the Second World War, where for every dollar we invested as taxpayers, we got back $7 in benefits to the entire economy. So it pays for itself. There's no reason in the world not to do it. Why are we not doing it? Because we have a predatory political system and a predatory economy where students and the younger generation is the latest cash cow to be squeezing profits out of. And you made a terrible mistake. You didn't hire lobbyists, big fancy lobbyists from K Street, to go lobby Congress to get yourself a decent system of public higher education. Well, that's not the kind of government we need. We need to be a government that is of, by, and for the people, where it is one person, one vote, not $1, one vote. So, that's where we are now, and I think the discussion in this room is just so exciting. It is so, it's absolutely what we need to be doing right now. I think it is the silenced discussion that needs to be taking place all over the country. And in fact, it already is taking place, but it's not being amplified. In fact, it's being silenced. It's being covered up. It's being hidden. In the same way that the powers that be didn't want Rosa's campaign and Cynthia's campaign to be heard. They didn't want my campaign and Sherry Hongolet's campaign to be heard, because it is the majoritarian campaign. It is what people are actually clamoring for in poll after poll. Not only to bail out the students, make public higher education free as it should be, make health care a human right as it should be. We don't need that austerity thing. Because in fact, Medicare for all will accomplish the same thing. It will actually save us trillions of dollars over the coming decade because it gets rid of that massive, wasteful health insurance bureaucracy that's eating up 30% of every healthcare dollar. Under Medicare, it's 3%. Instead, you can put all that money into actually creating healthcare instead of health insurance company profits. And the other thing that it does is get rid of medical inflation. This is the big driver in rising entitlement costs, so-called. It's actually the profiteering health insurance companies which are driving medical inflation. You move to a Medicare for all system, that inflation goes away, and suddenly you save trillions of dollars on the projected national debt. So it's like a no-brainer. The choice is between austerity or health care for everyone as a human right. It saves the same amount of money. There's no doubt where the American public wants to go. And they're just quaking in their boots that word gets out about all these things that we can fix. Right now, we are on track to lose it all. As one of the people on that wonderful panel was saying, that he's terrified and horrified about where we're going. Because we are on track to lose it all. Not only jobs and our climate, but racial justice and social justice. It's all going out the window. And we're seeing that. This isn't just hypothetical. This is actually happening. But we don't have to be losing it all. We could actually be winning it all. Because there is enough to go around. It's just a matter of our having a democracy that's serving everyday people that can put those policies in place. These policies are not rocket science. These are the things that the American people are already clamoring for. And what's so exciting, and I should mention before moving on, that one of those solutions, of course, is downsizing the bloated military. Our military budget doubled over the past decade. Are we twice as secure? In fact, we are less secure as we've seen all this blowback across the Middle East. Why? Because dropping bombs on weddings and funerals is not a good way to win the hearts and minds of the people of the Middle East. That's why we are better off with a military that's half the size of what it is right now. It's half as likely to be getting us into trouble than it is right now when it has a knee-jerk reflex that's taking us all kinds of places where we shouldn't be. We need to be bringing our troops home from 1,000 bases in over 140 countries around the world where we don't need to be. We can bring the troops home from those bases. We can bring the troops home from Afghanistan and from Iran. And we can end the drone wars for once and for all and create an international convention to stop the use of drones from becoming the latest arms race. We should be leading the world, not in creating a whole new war technology in the form of drones. We should not be leading the world, as we're doing now, in creating a whole new phase of the nuclear weapons race, as Obama is doing actually by investing $600 billion in a new generation of nuclear weapons and new modes of delivery, including a new missile system, new warheads, and new nuclear-armed submarines. This is a disgrace. This is not how we should be leading the world. We should be leading the world by downsizing our military. We will still be 3 times as big as the next biggest military around the world, so we can very safely do this and still be the ruler of the world, unfortunately. But let's start with that. Let's downsize our military by 50% We're spending $1 trillion a year now on this bloated military. So downsize it by 50%, and you have $500 billion to put into free public higher education. And to put into all the other things we need, from health care and the housing that we need. And we can put a moratorium on foreclosures and prevent another family from being thrown out of their homes. It's time to require the banks to sit down and negotiate to keep families in their homes. That's why they were bailed out. They were bailed out in order to keep homeowners in their homes. And in fact, the White House had hundreds of billions of dollars to add to those negotiations to ensure that we could buy up those mortgages. And they said, no, too much moral hazard. Well, the moral hazard lies in Wall Street, and Wall Street is occupying the White House. We need to get Wall Street out of the White House. So these are all the solutions that really lie within our reach right now. We can downsize the military. We can create a Green New Deal, which would create 25 million jobs, end unemployment now. During the New Deal that got us out of the Great Depression, we actually created 4 million jobs in 2 months. There's no excuse for us to be stalled in this Great Recession. It's a depression, actually, for many people, for communities of color, for low-income communities, and for students. When you're facing 50% unemployment and underemployment, that is a depression. That's not a recession. There's no excuse to be sitting back on this and waiting for it to fix itself. Same old is not going to fix it. We know how to fix it. We can create a Green New Deal right now, and it not only creates the jobs we need immediately, it also puts an end to the climate crisis immediately. And we need to do that as well. Not 4 years, not 8 years from now. We need to do that now. And the other thing that the Green New Deal does as well is make wars for oil obsolete, because it puts an end to that war economy and that oil economy. So all these solutions converge, they come together. The weak link, the missing link, in actually getting these solutions now is simply this. And it's what the panel was talking about. It's what Rosa was talking about. It's just a matter of using the power we already have and refusing to allow them to conduct psychological warfare on us, which is what they do. That's the only tool they have, is to try to convince us that we are powerless. That's why they have to keep us away from the microphone, because we know we're not powerless. That's why they're keeping you away from the microphone. You know you're not powerless. And how do we use that power? Well, Quebec is a really good example, because in Quebec, they got out on the streets. Their government made a law against their demonstrating in groups larger than 50 people. So what did they do? They got 500,000 people out to tell them where to send that law. And they kept it going. They had a general strike going on at their university, and they succeeded because, in part, they helped a new government get elected locally in Quebec. And it was with the Parti Québécois, which was not the leading liberal party. It was a more center-left party. And that party agreed to respond to everyday people. And they responded, when they got elected, by repealing the tuition hike. And they also repealed that law against demonstrations. And it really makes the point that I think Rosa was getting at before. There are many ways for us to organize. And there are many things for us to organize about. And, it's like that is sort of the challenge of the hour. How do you decide which is more critical to your future? Is it stopping racist violence? Is it stopping the likes of violence against Trayvon Martin? Is it organizing for racial justice? Is it organizing to get the jobs that we need right now? To boycott Walmart? To organize that union that needs to be developed at Walmart? We need to do that. We need to stop the climate crisis, and we need to stop the Keystone Pipeline from being built. We've got all these things that we need to do. We need to roll back tuition hikes and make public higher education free. We've got to do all of those things. So one of the things you learn after you go around the block on this stuff for 10 or 20 years, you learn that they want to keep us separated, one issue at a time. That's how they keep us divided and conquered, and really going backwards, even while we're working our butts off to move forward. We can move forward on our own issue, in our own community, while they are making the deals behind closed doors on Beacon Hill and on Capitol Hill and cooking our gooses. They can get away with that. So how do you fight that? What you learn, at least what I've learned in this mix here for about 20 years, and it took me about 20 years to learn it. I became an activist at the ripe old age of 40. I finally discovered activism. And then it wasn't until the ripe old age of 50 that I actually got recruited to join the Green Rainbow Party. And the reason I did was because I saw that we were working as hard as humanly possible, but we were all moving backwards. In fact, accelerating backwards. And by any standard right now, I think it's hard to say that we are not accelerating backwards, even though there is a movement, there is a rebellion going on out there, which is alive and well, and getting bigger by the day. But what happens when you get into a political party is that you don't have to fight every battle yourself. Suddenly you're working with a whole lot of people in a whole lot of issue areas on a whole lot of struggles. And it's like that motto from 17th century navigation lore that in a storm, you need one hand for yourself and you need one hand for the ship. Because right now we're working really hard, but the whole ship is going down. So we got to keep working hard, but find a way to keep working together. And that's why they don't want you to go political. They really want you to stay working on your issue group. Because once you get into political, then you're talking about power, which that panel was talking about, and you're talking about really holding people accountable. So you can work with them. You can still work with them. You can still talk to your office holders. But they know that you got their eye on them. And you are watching what they are doing. And you are ready to challenge them. In elections, you are ready to throw the bums out if they keep throwing you under the bus. So I'm going to wrap here just because you've had a long day. You've been amazing and inspirational. And, you're really why I'm in this. I just want to, I don't, not to put any pressure, but, I think all of us are depending on you because you guys have the numbers, you have the vision. 36 million students are indentured servants right now. You've been on the receiving end of a predatory political system. So 36 million people get together and there's no election that you can't win. Coming out of this election, we heard a poll on election day that overall, this was done by Common Dreams, so this is kind of a progressives poll. But even among progressives, green voices have been really shut down in lots of ways. But that is changing. So what this poll showed on Election Day was that overall, 77% of Common Dreams readers were supporting Obama, but 18% were actually supporting our Green campaign, which is huge. That is a great leap forward. But here's the really cool thing. As you went down the age spectrum, among 80-year-olds, we had 12% support. But as you came down younger and younger, we had more and more until you got to age 35. Starting at age 35 and below, Greens are winning. We're actually ahead of the Democrats among 35-year-olds and under. That is the green shift that's happening now, because we need a green politics. In Massachusetts, we say green rainbow, because green means racial justice and equality and liberties and civil rights. It is as much a fight for racial justice as it is for economic justice. That is what the Green Rainbow Party and the Green Party are very much about. So in this green shift, it's a demographic shift, but it's a shift to the future. And it's a shift for peace, justice, democracy, and sustainability, which are the only way to go forward. There is no other way to survive into the 21st century. And there's no way to get there except with the leadership of the people who are in this room. You are the ones who are taking us there right now. And it's my goal and my hope to provide the support to enable you to fulfill your destiny, to fulfill your responsibility, to really lead us out of the quagmire that we're in, to take us off of this trajectory towards catastrophe that we are on, but that which you are already changing. So I want to invite you and welcome you to consider coming to the Green Rainbow Party Convention in Worcester on Saturday. If you need help carpooling, let us know, because we'll have a bunch of carpools going out. Talk to Frank Jackson over here, and I want to give a big thank you to Frank for helping bring me here today. And Frank is also in the process of establishing a green campus organization, a Campus Greens, which have been springing up all over the country in the course of our campaign, which was focused on colleges and universities and community colleges all over the country. At practically every college we visited, we left a Campus Green organization in the process of rising up. And Isabel, are you here? Isabel?
She left.
Had to go pick up her kid, but she is driving out as well. So we'll be able to network with Isabel Espinal, who will also be carpooling out. And there are a few others. If there are people, we will get you there, one way or the other. And we'll try to have that organization here on campus soon as well. So just to leave you with, incredible gratitude for having broken the silence, for having broken the logjam, and having revived that spirit of democracy and justice, which is alive and well, and which is unstoppable. So I thank you for taking back our democracy and the peaceful, just, green future we deserve, and a part of that is the fight going forward in Massachusetts to put an end to student debt and make public higher education free. And we would very much like to work with you to help engage that battle on a statewide basis to see if we can't get there in the next year, at least to start bringing down these tuition rates.
All right, so now if anyone has, we're going to do a couple questions. We're running real late, but so yeah, if anyone has any questions they would like to ask, I can run you over the microphone, you can ask, and I can run it back over to Jill. Can you state your name, please?
Libby. First of all, I just really want to say thank you because I have never felt more represented of a candidate before. I actually had the opportunity to meet President Obama this summer, and to be honest, I'm way more excited to meet you.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask you, this is an issue that's really important to me personally. I am really concerned with the fact that the death penalty and the prison system that we have in our country, I don't think I need to tell you guys that it is a really racist system, it's a really unjust system, and it is causing a lot of problems for us. And one of the things that I was really excited about was that you actually took a position on that. And so I would just really like to hear what you think we should do moving forward to change the system that we have and the injustices in it.
Great, wonderful. Yeah, I think in Massachusetts, obviously, we don't have the death penalty. Fortunately, more and more states are repealing the death penalty. So if there's a way that you can engage your friends in other states to be parts of those struggles, this is a great time to be pushing forward. In Massachusetts, you may know, we are spending more money on our system of incarceration than we are on public higher education. And we need to turn that around, and I think that can be one of our big struggles going forward this year.
Let me tandem with Jill, because the Green Party, right? Because we forget about our platform. The platform of the Green Party has the end of the prison industrial complex as one of its things, all right? So we're not a party like President Obama, a black man who not one time has the man said the word prison industrial complex when you have racist Republicans who even talk about how prison building is bad. In terms of the prison industrial complex, I encourage students here, particularly in the other 5 colleges, to join the student group Students Against Mass Incarceration. It was started at Howard by this great brother Ben Woods. The chapters are growing, and we know that within the prison industrial complex, there's a lot of levels that we can all fight against, particularly the increase of women of color who are now making up 60% of the female population in prisons. We're just tandeming. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, say it, Rosa.
How can we work to get more Green candidates in the statewide and national congressional ballots as well as presidential?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think coming out of this race, we're just beginning to have this kind of debriefing now and get a lot of input, but my reading at this point is that the money is so powerful at the national level. There's only so much we can do. At the same time, I think it's really important for us to run headliner campaigns because we have to hold power accountable, and we've got to build at that grassroots movement from the bottom to the top. We've got to challenge them at the top, and that in turn engages a lot of people at the grassroots level. Going forward, I think we're really focusing now on municipal races, on school committee, on librarian boards, you name it, on city councils, on mayors, DAs, district attorneys, you name it. And I really encourage people to consider running for office. We're going to be doing trainings to try to help support candidate development, to try to help support campaign managers so you know how to run these things. I think this is a really great time for young people to start getting used to it, because it's going to fall to you to be the leaders who are going to take us out of this wilderness. And the sooner you get started building those skills, the better. And the places to start is at that local level. And we'd love to help you get there. Yeah, thank you.
If you're running to me, I don't need it. I promise. What is your position now that we're legal after 8 years of struggle? For medicinalization, because I know that was our issue when we worked on the NADA campaign.
Awesome, yeah. So the question is, where do we go from here now with medical marijuana? We're going to have a big fight on our hands just to be able to get medical marijuana into effect, because Obama, again, is fighting on that one too, and has really criminalized patients with cancer, with cerebral palsy, in wheelchairs. In Colorado, where they've had medical marijuana for a long time, they have riot police showing up at their doors in full riot gear, surrounding patients in wheelchairs for using legal medical marijuana that they have prescriptions for. So, you know, we're going to have a big fight on our hands. But, you know, I think it's a good time for some creative discussion. Because in states now, like Washington, that has actually passed marijuana, what happens when everybody starts using it? They can't go out and arrest everybody.
So we should all smoke a fatty.
So stay tuned. I think this is another reason why we want to be a part of a political party, because we can't all cover the waterfront ourselves. But we can be tied in to a party where we have people who are working on it and developing the next strategy that we can all jump in on and have a good time supporting. Other questions?
I don't need that, it's okay.
Well, maybe you covered this because I walked in a little bit late, apologies. But I wanted to know about continuity between like lower ed public school and the prison, like the public school prison pipeline, because I was working on a project for like literacy acquisition skills, and the rates in like certain towns are like very deplorable in comparison to other like towns of higher socioeconomic status, and like that's something that like absolutely like tremendously like needs much addressing if we're going to improve higher education, because I'm worried about not only the children but the people in the community who are their parents, who are also allies in this, because they're looking to send their children to college. And there's more continuity. I mean, I'm a student parent myself, and you know, I fear for the public school system, you know, 30 minutes away. And how can we, you know, make continuity as students by like going back, by pulling others up for like things that are important for like all of us, because their issues are our issues, but they're just outside of this academic bubble. And I wanted to hear what you had to say about that.
Great. Well said and really important. And the way that public education is being privatized, is being dismantled, is being destroyed. You know, it's part of the attack that's going on now on communities of color, especially, on working people, on the poor. The whole philosophy of education right now, under both George Bush and under Barack Obama, is all about privatization. It's all about high-stakes testing. It has nothing to do with how people learn. It has nothing to do with people. It's a business model of education for which there's absolutely no support. In fact, there's lots of evidence that this is the worst thing you can possibly do, especially for challenged learners. We need to get rid of poverty if we want to have a good education system. That's where our focus needs to be. We need to fund our schools. We need to bring down student-to-teacher ratios. We need to make sure our teachers are well-trained, well-paid, well-educated, and then given the freedom to actually invest in their students, to engage their communities and their families. Finland is the example of the best education system out there. They don't use a single high-stakes test, and we shouldn't either. And there's so much that we can do to support our community schools. And parents are organizing in many communities around the state. And I think for us to be there to support parents who are demanding local schools, who are demanding that their schools not be shut down because of this false system of, this false yardstick that measures students by high-stakes testing. That's absolutely the wrong thing to do. We need to get the resources in there and deal with the poverty so that students actually come to school capable of learning. If you're malnourished and you're sick and you're running through gunfire and worried about violence after school, you know, all the high-stakes tests in the world, they're just going to make that worse. We need to end the high-stakes testing system altogether. We need to start teaching the whole student for lifetime learning, bring back the arts, bring back physical education, bring back civics and community engagement. This is not rocket science. This is just plain old ABCs, of education. And this is what pedagogy, the study of education says as well. The problem is that the foxes, have captured the chicken coop. And at the end of the day, we need to kick them out, and there are all kinds of ways we can do that. And in the meantime, we got to support our community schools and stand up for them.
How high on the list of offenders is the Electoral College in suppressing disenfranchised voters, third-party and independent candidates, and what can be done?
Yeah, so the question is about the Electoral College and how much responsibility should we lay on that for kind of locking out voters. And it's very much a part of the problem. Because the Electoral College, it's a winner-take-all system, and it ensures that you don't have diverse voices. It basically shuts you out unless you are the big spender. And if you're the big spender, you're the guy cutting the deals with the deep pockets in the back room for the fossil fuels, for the war industry, and the defense contractors, and all that. So it's very much a part of the mix. You may remember, or probably you may not remember, because you may have been too young, but back in the 90s, we passed campaign finance reform here in Massachusetts. Anybody remember that? In the late 90s, we actually got rid of the money stranglehold around our political system. We passed public financing of elections. And right after we passed it, you know what happened? The legislature, which was about 85% Democratic, decided they had to repeal it. We passed it as a referendum by a 2-to-1 margin. Overwhelmingly, it was passed, and the legislature turned around and repealed it on a voice vote, no less. And that said to me, we need these individual solutions, but we need a whole new political culture, or they're just going to find a way around it. So we definitely need to get rid of the Electoral College. We need same-day voter registration. We need a constitutional amendment clarifying the right of every American to a vote, so that they can't go passing these voter ID laws and wipe people out from their votes. We need instant runoff voting, which lets you rank your choices. It gets rid of the whole fear factor. So if your first choice loses, your vote is automatically reassigned to your second choice. So there's none of this splitting of the vote. And you know what? We worked with a progressive Democrat back in 2002, which was the first time I ran for office, for governor in this state. I didn't want to have a split election on my conscience, so we got that bill into the legislature in enough time to make sure that there would be no splitting of the vote, that we could have a ranked choice system. So what did they do? They've been sitting on it for 12 years now, refusing to let it out of committee, because they're very afraid. They are very afraid that if they can't use the politics of fear, that, then it's all over for them. If they no longer have fear to constrain us, then people are going to stand up. But you know what? People are going to stand up anyhow, because there's nowhere else for us to go except to stand up and start fighting for the future and the jobs and the health care and the free higher education that we need and that we deserve. We're not just stuck in a bad place. We are accelerating in the wrong direction. And I think, we had a big fear campaign in this last election, but pretty soon we're going to see the president cutting Medicare, cutting Social Security, cutting Medicaid, approving the Keystone Pipeline, and then approving the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which he's been leading the way on. So they don't have a single exit strategy in mind for the crises that we're facing. That's why it's our responsibility to stand up, to move these solutions forward, and to fight them in a strategic way. And that's what a political party does. It enables you to get together and figure out what is the strategy in this moment that can best help us leverage the political power and the political will that we already have. Let's leverage it, let's move it forward, and let's win the day.
Alright, so I think we're going to take one more question, and then we're going to start to close out.
Hi, thank you. I just want to say it's an absolute honor having you at UMass. It's absolutely ecstatic to meet you, so thank you for being here. And my question is in regards to human rights activism. It's something that's very dear to me, and I know it's very dear to a large amount of students at UMass. And I was wondering, what would be your solution for closing Guantanamo Bay and trying to find some form of sovereignty and dispute for these people?
Wonderful question. How do we close Guantanamo Bay? And how do we find some kind of justice for the people who've been imprisoned there? And that's a very big question, but I think we have to simply stand up and demand it. I don't think there's like one single thing that we have to do that's going to be the magic bullet. But I think that we need to be able to stand up. And it's not only to stand up on Guantanamo Bay, but it's also to stand up against this expanding war effort that is very much the flip side of Guantanamo Bay. That in the same way that the president has acquired the power now to assassinate anyone overseas, including American citizens, the president has that power to assassinate and imprison any one of us right here as well. So the whole issue of civil liberties and peace, they just go hand in hand. And I think if we work on those issues together, we bring in a whole lot of people. The American public already supports, by large majority, that we bring the troops home, that we downsize the military, that we end these expanding wars. And people also get that there is a real danger to our civil liberties. Although it doesn't get discussed very much, when it does get brought up, people are really alarmed, and very alarmed, about the loss of our civil liberties. The president signed the National Defense Authorization Act on New Year's Eve last year. Why did he do it on New Year's Eve? Because he didn't want you to notice. And why didn't he want you to notice? Because people don't like this idea that the president is expanding imperial powers and has dictatorial rights now to be able to throw any of us into jail. And you add that together with the criminalization of protest, H.R. 347. I don't know if that rings a bell to people, but it's a very shady bill with very vague wording that can be interpreted to mean that if you are standing in the wrong place at the wrong time, even if you thought it was completely legal, and it was illegal till they decided to declare it a site of special national security, which they can do privately, you don't need to know about it. All of a sudden you're a felon, and you can be plunked into jail for 10 years. So you start adding up these things, together with stuff like the stop and frisk bill in New York that is still going strong. Almost 1 million people a year are being stopped, largely, about 80 to 90% people of color. And they're not finding any weapons. They're not making New York a safer place. They're making it a more dangerous place for abusing people. So, all these things go together. There is a movement to stand up, to fight for our civil liberties. And as Benjamin Franklin said a long time ago, if we sacrifice liberty for security, we will wind up losing both. So these are very basic American ideas that we need our civil liberties and our civil rights and our human rights, and that goes hand in hand with an international policy, a foreign policy based on international law and based on human rights, not based on militarism. This is the way forward. This is how we get jobs at home. This is how we get investment at home. This is how we get to that green economy of the future that makes wars for oil obsolete and puts an end to climate change. This is what we have in front of us, and I thank you all so much for being here and doing all that you're doing. And I hope that you join us. Consider joining us and giving a political voice to this agenda. Lacking that political voice, we are so many social movements that are all doing great things but never quite get to critical mass. It takes a political organization to bring us together to achieve that political mass. I think there has never been a meeting, a convergence of the movements and the agendas of peace, justice, democracy, racial justice, economic justice, worker justice. All of us are being pushed to the brink right now. And we have an incredible opportunity to turn this breaking point that we face into the tipping point we need and is in front of us right now to take back our democracy and the peaceful, just, green future we deserve. Thank you all for making it so. Go to greenrainbow.org if you want to get more info or talk to Frank and Patrick. Oh, and there's a table over there with info for the upcoming convention and also for the Green Party campus organization. Thank you all so much. Keep up the good work. I want to thank those songs for another